Recording's on.
Luckily, he didn't see me. So he's as obnoxious there as he is here.
Oh, was he?
So he's, must be.
So at least he's consistent.
Yeah, he's generally obnoxious. But he's bashing the district, they were talking about their kids and stuff, and he's like, yeah.
He has elected me to lead this meeting tonight.
I didn't want to do the workshop report.
He's offered me a hefty sum that will be,
And that's involved then.
right, will be deposited in my Venmo upon completion of the meeting. So, good evening. I'm just going, I think what I first do is call it to order. So, there we go. What do I do next? Oh, great. Can we have, I'm going to ask for the approval of the January 22 meeting minutes, which are located on the next page of the handout.
I'll make the motion to approve those minutes.
Excellent. Can I get a second?
With you.
I will second it. Yeah, because can you guys do anything?
Yeah,
If-
and Judy would.
Okay,
She's ex officio.
okay.
Oh, okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll second it then.
Excellent, thank you,
Judy
Judy.
checks
So,
everything, so she'll just, you know.
yeah, minutes are approved, fantastic.
No questions.
Oh, are there any questions?
Why are the multicolored?
A lot of important things to know tonight, and we needed them to be.
Somebody's anal.
I usually do the notes in red, that's why. I don't know why I have red on the top page. I neglected to blacken that.
Well, it's very impressive.
Everything sticks out where it should. All right, next item.
All in favor?
What's that?
Go.
Oh, all in favor
Aye.
of the approval of the minutes? Any opposed? Excellent, so the minutes are approved. Number 2, we'll go to the approval item, the updated curriculum writing contract for Spanish 4. Rachel Schmeckenbecker to change the payment of Spanish 4 to a new course revision. Right? I practiced. I practiced.
Probably have it in school.
Okay, was her last name Schmeckenbecker? I would have
She's
remembered
been
that.
around for a while.
Oh, yeah,
My
she's
kids had
fantastic,
her.
yeah.
That's a great name.
Yeah. Everybody calls her Schmeck, but yeah, Schmeck.
And she teaches Spanish.
And English, yes.
Good for her.
Holy cow.
So I have this on here, I'm seeking approval to put it on the agenda. Spanish 4 was always a course on paper, but when Rachel got into writing it this year, she realized there really wasn't anything substantive to build upon. And so the hours and the time that she's been spending putting into this, it's building a new course. And so we always have that structure of a new course versus a revision to an old course. There really wasn't enough of anything to revise, so it is a lot of extra time and effort. So I wanted to see if I could get it on the board agenda to approve that as a new course to be written and give her the compensation that's worth the time that she's putting into it.
So Kim,
Yes.
here's the $1 million question, and this is not a reflection on you or Dr. Perini. Why? You know, once again, why?
So, and it's an excellent question. The person who was teaching Spanish 4 before kind of rolled with what he walked in on. And, you know, sometimes when you're teaching a couple of different courses, you don't necessarily take the time to write everything out and to kind of record it in the fashion that you're supposed to. And if you're the only teacher teaching it, I think sometimes it's all up here. So it wasn't a fault of anybody that came before me or even the teacher that was there. And right now is when it's come up in review to get paid for. So now's the time we kind of can put their feet to the fire and ask that it be done in writing. Andrew, I don't know if you have anything
Yeah,
to
I'll
add
add to that.
Yeah.
One of the truthful answer is that when Bunny taught it previously, there weren't enough kids for a standalone course. So they would compact it into, 3, 4, 4, 5. I mean, and you remember Bunny. So she would just take all the kids as they migrated beyond level 2
Okay.
and mix them all up. And then, she really wasn't writing standalone courses because she was really trying to service all levels
Yeah.
in one section.
So,
We've had an increase in enrollment in language.
And then
yeah, that was my
So-
question.
next.
Are the numbers up in the language, and so now it can be separated out? Okay.
And now we've moved the
Middle
level
school.
1 language to middle school.
Yeah, that was the other
So
one.
we have the opportunity for kids to get further up into level 4 and potentially even AP.
Which is really good
Yeah.
because having a daughter who just went through last year the college admission process, they are really, really looking for those level 3 and level 4. You know, it used to just be, okay, you took 2 years of Spanish, you're good, but they're really putting more emphasis on having those further classes. I'm glad to see that we're going to really put that on paper and have a solid course. Will it be a dual enrollment? At one time, Spanish 4 was dual enrollment, was it not?
That predated.
Yeah, I'm talking like
Yeah,
a while
long,
ago.
long time ago, yeah. I
don't
think it's
have
just a
any-
high school
yeah.
accredited course.
It's a high school credited course. It will be honors
Just-
weighting because it is a level 4, so it will receive honors weighting, which is incentivized. And then the idea is that it would lead into the AP, which of course you can get college credit for.
Great, thank you.
So, Mrs. McCormick, can I ask additional foreign language questions?
By all means.
What languages do we offer?
French, Spanish, and German.
We're going to stay with French and German. Here's where I'm going.
Middle school, you mean?
Don't we have Latin?
No, Latin went away a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh, you mean as an offering, just in high school?
Yeah,
Those 3?
yeah.
So in our foreign language review, those are the only 3 that were built into our 5-year plan for curriculum.
Was there or will there ever be a thought process or a conversation about Chinese?
So I can tell you, in the review several years ago, less commonly taught languages was part of the conversation. Mandarin specifically was part of the conversation. 2 of the biggest challenges that we talked about was, number 1, securing a teacher.
Right.
So a virtual option was explored and discussed because there are districts who pool together
Yeah.
to secure a Mandarin teacher
Yeah.
and then offer it virtually. So that was part of our discussion as expanding our programs. Now, some districts that we looked at during that review were dropping other languages, in particular, French.
Yeah.
So they were not adding necessarily,
Yeah.
unless they were very large school districts. They were eliminating due to low enrollment and trying to replace it with a virtual option in like a less commonly taught language.
Yeah.
So, some of the things, Mandarin was there, Urdu, Middle Eastern languages were there, just because if you are in the world of, finance or business or honestly military, any of those less commonly taught languages are preferred. I think the concern of the team at the time was that they wanted to make sure they had a full core, the programs that we did offer.
Yeah.
German, Spanish in particular. German is our most popular language
Really?
Yeah.
with the least number of teachers assigned to it.
Interesting.
So, and if you remember, Petra was going between middle school and high school in order for us to even just get German 1 at the middle school. So I can tell you there wasn't a ton of traction in adding. Number 1, because we had just brought French back, if you remember. So
I
it
didn't
was
know it
French and
left.
Spanish.
I didn't know it left.
Yeah.
It was gone for about 5 years.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
what brought it back? Just kid interest or?
so when we remember, they used to take an English and a reading exclusively in the middle school. And so when we were talking ELA review, not every kid needed reading in 8th grade. And so we simultaneously decided that, and then it was in the mix of that honors conversation as well. And so those students who had English and reading before we turned it into ELA, we wanted to open it up, and when 8th grade opened up and did not have to take reading anymore, and we transitioned to ELA, we added foreign language at the middle school. When at the onset, it was Spanish only and only for gifted kids in honors. So it's come a long way in the last couple of years. And so that we had kids who didn't want to take Spanish. So we also offered French and then German.
All right.
And I can tell you at Springford, we did offer Chinese. We offered a Mandarin 1 and a Mandarin 2. It was very, very costly. We used my Language 360 as the virtual offer of that, and the cost per pupil was extremely high. We maybe had 5 students taking the class, and depending on how much live teacher time you got, you pay almost $24,000 per course.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of look at the cost benefit as well. It's very difficult to find a local person who would teach that face to face. It's almost always got to be a virtual option.
But do we, like, annually or regularly, like, survey the student population to see what kind of feedback they give in terms of foreign languages?
Part of the process for new courses is that very thing. So if a teacher has an interest in a new course, or if we're trying to figure out if Dr. Carpenter or someone else has an idea for a new course, the first thing is that it goes through a survey to see how many students might be interested in taking it.
I think one of the things we heard during that review process was a desire to have kids exposed younger,
Right.
as opposed to more
Yeah.
language offerings.
Yeah.
7th grade in
Yeah.
particular. They really wanted the kids to get, and that committee, when we did the review, also explored 6th grade exploratory language,
Yeah.
which also existed in Upper Perk,
Yeah.
where kids went through that rotation during that exploratory time.
Yeah.
And so they got a taste of each of those. And then no one could really pinpoint when that went away.
Yeah, I worked in a couple districts where they offered it at very young ages to do that exploratory
Yeah.
kind of concept, and,
Yeah.
yeah. So their language is still developing, so, like when you're born, you can like speak like 3,000 languages if you're taught it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So,
I also think it would be interesting to think about American Sign Language and expanding
Yes.
that to, as an offering as well. It might be easier to
That's what I
find.
took, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I always think,
Me too. I took it in college, I didn't take it in high school, but yeah, so I think that's
how cool
very
would that
useful. Yeah, it's really useful, and I think, I just know based from the hospital that I work at, there's a lot of certified, interpreters that may be interested in, I don't know, any, or there may be people within the school that already know and know how to, can teach it and things like that too.
be?
So.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you think, German?
Spanish. Yeah. My brother took German, I took Spanish, and my sister took French. So we're like, we're United Nations. Now my parents are talking Pennsylvania Dutch. So it's like very bizarre in our
That
house.
could be its own language.
So for this, this group needs to approve it in order for it to be put on the agenda? So do I need to ask for a motion? Are there any more questions about it before we move on?
I'll make the motion to add that to the next agenda.
I'll second it. Can I second it?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
Will that go on the workshop agenda?
Judy. We didn't review the agenda yet.
Is it something?
There's no hurry, I don't pay her until the spring, so
I prefer to keep it on the business
That's
meeting.
fine.
There's no rush, right?
If there's no rush.
Yep, no
That's why I
rush.
look to you, because it's like, if it's something we need right away, then sure, but if
No
not. We are trying to limit action
Yeah.
items at the workshop
Yep.
as much as possible to keep it back to, we're trying to get back to that
Yep.
workshop mentality, not business meeting.
Absolutely.
So, but obviously, there's things that come up that we just have to vote on sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So it will be added to the next full board meeting agenda.
The other item I have on here for approval, what we've discovered through a lot of the work that we've been doing, particularly with full day K, which is going amazingly. You should see these kids. They're so much fun to be around. they frighten me a little bit in big groups like that. But I've been in there enough now that I feel a little bit more comfortable. It's just fantastic to see this unfolding, and the teachers are doing wonderful things, and they're asking for some help, and you know, a lot of things have been learned through the implementation this school year. One of the things that we looked at is, as we're looking at the curriculum documents, which were written for K1 and 2 over the past year, but we spent a lot of time on full day K because it meant stretching that out. We're discovering that we have separate pieces of our curriculum. ELA is a lot of different things. It's writing, it's Haggerty, it's foundations, it's guided reading. And so we kind of need to pull all those documents together and put them into a form that is user-friendly and pacing, so that when we transfer it into BYOC or we fix it into our database, BYOC, that it's understandable, and that we've been able to kind of look at what we did our first year with full day K, figure out what fits and what doesn't. We're also discovering that because of the pandemic, teachers started to do different things at home. In fact, and they had our full blessing to focus on the primary standards in a particular area with students. And so we're trying to come back to, okay, what should in-class instruction look like? What should that curriculum fully be, instead of just focusing on focus standards, as it were. So we have a need to dig in and kind of relook at some of these curriculum documents, and they're outside of the curriculum cycle. So we have a lot of math teachers saying, I want to make sure this assessment now aligns with what we're actually doing in class, because it's changed again post-COVID. We also have the opportunity to align our middle school and high school courses with Edgenuity. We do have a lot of students in there right now, which is our UPOLA. And every time a new student transfers in, Sarah and or Molly and or the guidance counselors at the high school have to say, okay, here are the units you should do, and they do the alignment at that point. What we'd rather see done is our core courses aligned to Edgenuity, so if students roll over, it's already there, we know what that course looks like. And so we were hoping to schedule some of this work to take place before July 1. I'd like to use some of the funds, some of the savings that we've had because of curriculum writers dropping off, or grant money that came through, and we were able to pay for some things with grant money rather than the curriculum budget. So the total cost for this, I have it all outlined, and I can show that to you if you want me to. I can even pop it up here. It has the dates, it has the number of teachers. The total cost would be about $15,000 to be paid out to teachers prior to July 1. If I get volunteers. You know, as I know, teachers are working really, really hard, and last summer we didn't get a lot of teachers who wanted to commit to work over the summer, so I'm not even sure I would get as many people as I anticipate or want to help with these projects, but I wanted to see if I would be able to put that forward for approval, to take these curriculum projects, get them in and done and tied up neatly before we enter into the next school year.
What is the order of priority for how
Great
you do
question.
it if you don't get enough?
Great question. It's K1, 2, 3 ELA. We've been doing a ton of work this year with the MCIU and professional development, and looking at our assessment portfolio, and really kind of honing in on why we're doing what we're doing, what assessments we want to keep, how does that translate to diagnostic testing in the classroom, and then choosing the right instruction and intervention if needed. So that would be the priority. That's who I would primarily like to target.
And how many teachers do you need to do that?
I can pull that up. There's a couple of different projects. So I can just be able to show you some of that. So this is really the primary here. This is K-3 curriculum integration. Some of it is also working on the standards-based report card for K. That's another thing that's outlined on there. So you can see how I have this outlined. A couple of them I tried to do for day 190. That doesn't cost us any money. This is what costs us money, that paid time right here. So for this particular thing, I think I have it on my budget. 2 different documents.
While you look that up, can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
Are we only doing standards-based report cards for kindergarten, or are we doing it K to 2?
We're looking to do standards-based reporting K to 5, actually.
Eventually.
Right, so we're doing our grading and assessing and reporting committee right now, and some of the feedback I got from the administrators and teachers was, wow, there's a lot more that this is going to entail. So K, we feel really comfortable with because we've already been aligning the curriculum that way. We've been doing progress reports. So that will definitely be next year's K. And then we'll be working throughout the year to turn 1 through 5 into that standards-based report card as well.
But the first year, you're only planning on kindergarten. This year, they're not doing a standards-based?
What they're doing is, it's a progress report. We used a progress
Okay.
report in trimester 1, and then we used a progress report in trimester 2. We're working on that right now. I don't know why I can't find this, I'm sorry.
I would say it's a progress report, but it's not a standards-based report card.
It's a transition.
Yeah, it's the middle
Transition this year to the
Yeah.
standards-based next year.
Yeah.
They are very different. My elementary school does standards-based report cards, and it's a completely different concept.
What's nice about standards-based is you really get a look at where the kids are right now.
Right.
Because we're not averaging where they started and where they are now. We get a look at how far they've grown. So to me, I think that's really helpful.
When I was a principal of Palisades in elementary, we transitioned from a regular report card to a standards-based report card. It took us, K to 5, it took us years. Yeah, we started primary as well.
Yeah. So we're looking for about 8 teachers. So this is the project that is Ela Curriculum Integration. We're looking for about 8 teachers. You can see I've done the math for each one of those. And then for first through third, we're looking for a team of 16 because that's more grade levels. So it's K 1, 2, 3. So I hope to get 4 per grade level. So these are my primary priorities. It's the K to 3 standard. There's the K standards-based report card and K to 3 curriculum integration. The math we can work on next year if we needed to throughout the school year. As we can with Edgenuity. And Edgenuity now is a part of curriculum review. So as courses go through curriculum review, we're going to do that alignment right away. So there's no question and it's done. We're not at curriculum review with every course right now.
And you're saying that these funds do exist, it's just a matter of this is what you'd like to allocate.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Yeah. So some of the things that we budgeted this particular school year, we've been able to offset through ESSER funding. So I didn't spend the money I anticipated on this because it was done through ESSER funds.
All right.
Additionally, some of the curriculum writers have said, well, I bit off more than I can chew, and I'm not going to be able to do that. So I always end up giving you an approval list of curriculum writers that's smaller than the list I got approved the prior spring.
But the money's there, so you're not
Yes,
asking
that is
for more money
correct.
from anywhere.
That is
It's a
correct.
move. Yeah, it's a ledger move.
It is, it's
Yeah.
a ledger move. Dan loves when I do that. So I wanted to make sure I was explaining that clearly and the need for it. Bottom line is if I don't get funding or I don't get teachers, we have to figure out a way to do it with the number of people that we do have available, and or Sarah and I, or we do it at the beginning of the school year with some folks if we're able to do that. But that becomes problematic with trying to get other professional development done.
I mean, I have no problem with adding this to the budget, so does anyone have any other questions before we?
I would just say that if this is going to become an agenda item for our meeting, that it's made clear to the rest of the board
Agreed.
where the money's coming from.
And I can do that. I can actually show the offset.
And I would even venture to, the way that you broke it out, just not even to that level of detail that was up there, but sort of from a priority and where we're going to start, I think that gives it a little bit more.
Mhm.
And we're also recommending March. Board,
The March board meeting,
is that?
is that
Do you
correct?
need this one sooner to get
No,
started?
I would like to let teachers know, but I'm comfortable saying pending board approval and just kind of floating the dates out for them. No one has to make a commitment right now, but at least I could say pending board approval, these are the projects, put it on your radar. I'm okay waiting, I think.
Then we'll do the March meeting, which I believe Dr. Farina will be running with me.
Yeah, so don't screw it up.
All right, so motion to approve this?
I'll make the motion to include it on the agenda.
Yes.
Sure, I'll second it for you.
Okay, any, no, not yet, because I did questions. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're good to go for that one, to add to the March agenda.
Thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. The next thing I have on the item is just a little bit, we talked a little bit last time about the integration of curriculum and technology, and this is a very common model that's used, maybe part of the SAMR model before. And I always like to be really clear when we talk about the use of technology. We never want to use it just for technology's sake. We want to use it to enhance what's happening in the classroom. Now, COVID forced us into a brand new ballgame. I mean, Jim's crew and our crew were working with teachers to try to help them understand new digital content, understand new technology tools. And so as we continue to do that and we go back into the classroom and we want kids' faces, not always in front of a screen, we're trying to think about the best possible way to use technology to engage students at the correct level of difficulty and help them grow in their learning. So in some instances, on the next slide, you'll see we have some digital content specifically for that. We have some training happening right now through TLS, which we've talked about before. And even in our literacy training with the IU, we're talking about how technology tools can help enhance teaching in the classroom. And so you can see that this kind of model works its way up. And it's not always the goal to do transformative things. There is a place for just enhancing technology in the classroom. So we're working toward teachers doing really engaging things with students in a way that enhances students' ability to learn and teachers' ability to learn more about students. So I say that to show you some of the favorite things that we've been able to pay for originally with COVID funds. They're now in our budget for the upcoming school year. The things that our teachers have really taken a liking to in terms of supporting students. So in the middle you'll see Freckle, which always has a little pig as its icon. And Lexia, which is a reading program. So Freckle is a program that runs through Star Renaissance. We use Freckle at the middle school for ELA, for our English classes, and we use Freckle at 4-5 for math. And it really is a program that allows students to kind of get on there and work in areas where they struggle. So the teacher can assign a whole class to work on a particular thing, or they can assign individual students based on what we know from student data. Lexia works the same way. Lexia also has lesson plans for teachers to use if a student is struggling with phonics or decoding or things like that. So Freckle and Lexia are very much integrated into the student experience for that personalized instruction. Dreambox performs that function for math in our K-3 and then in our middle school as well. And we did a math review last year. We looked at the different products that were available, and we had K-3 choose Dreambox as well as the middle school, but Freckle went with 4-5 for a number of different reasons. And one of the reasons we were okay with using different platforms is sometimes kids get fatigued looking at the same thing, K-8. And so based on what they could give to the teachers in terms of recording and helping students move forward and help with their areas of struggle, those were the decisions made. So those three on here are really digital content type of things, remediation. They offer lesson plans for teachers. So we use those as a part of everyday instruction in a teacher's rotation, station rotations, and guided reading and things like that. A couple of items that we heard about and knew about because of COVID are Boom Cards, Cami, and Pear Deck. Boom Cards kids love these. Our first grade teachers took to Boom Cards and had Sarah and I playing them. They were showing us how they work one day. And it's interactive games where they're learning what students know and don't know. So it's kind of like a quiz, but way more fun. It's based on gaming theory, really engages the students. And our teachers, I mean, you have to create them. So they went in and they found some that they liked that were pre-created, but most of them created their own and shared, and the kids really got into that, and we still use them now that we're back in face-to-face. Cami is a product that takes anything that we currently exist and it makes it more interactive. So teachers had a lot of PDF documents that were just flat PDF documents, and where kids were home, they needed a way, because kids couldn't print and turn things in. So Cami is a platform that turns a PDF or virtually anything else into an interactive module for kids to kind of interact with, and the teacher can get the feedback that way. So teachers loved that, we bought it again. Pear Deck is extremely versatile. Pear Deck has pre-created items, things like videos with questions embedded, things like slide decks with questions embedded. Again, very interactive for kids, a great formative assessment tool. So that was something that our teachers really, really took to as well. Again, makes it much more interactive. We can gather data on students. You know, sometimes you put a video on and you just let it run. This allows teachers to put very pointed questions at different times throughout to gather some feedback. So those became favorites through COVID. Prior to this, we were using Nearpod a lot, which is the same, basically the same thing as Paradigm.
COVID changed everything.
It really did, in a lot of good ways,
Yeah,
for as many as the negative things that we've heard. Newsela is a product we've used for a long time. Newsela presents text in a variety of reading levels for students, and they have a lot of current event articles. So if teachers are working on something in class and they want to get a nonfiction article to coincide with it, they can go there. There are lesson plans, there are thematic lessons, everything that's topical in the news you can find there. And that's primarily used, I would say 6 through 12. I think it's dabbled in 4 or 5, and even in the elementary school, but that's something that our secondary teachers really rely on. And Seesaw is something that our elementary teachers really rely on to get feedback from kids. The best thing about Seesaw is kids can record themselves, and they know how, and they're so good at it. So they can record themselves reading a book or doing something that the teacher has asked them to do and turn the video in to the teacher for review and feedback. It's a way to communicate with parents. It's a way to put some activities out there. They also have pre-made activities, but a teacher can upload anything that they want to on there as well. Go ahead.
The buzzword that you just said was communicate with parents. Is this a way that could potentially become something that we could use to communicate with, for parents to communicate with kids without it being an email? Does this have any kind of
It's
safety?
basically teacher-parent communication.
Teacher-parent?
Teacher, yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you
Yes.
meant
Yeah.
student-parent. Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think it
Okay.
has that capability.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no,
based on
that's a
the-
good idea.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share with you some of the things that you'll continue to see in the budget as we roll forward, and the reason why we really have taken to them. We didn't keep everything that we bought in COVID. We didn't go with everything because some things didn't work, some things didn't enhance education, the way I kind of framed it in the last slide. But these are some of our tried and true. There are others. Jim and his department and Sarah and I really keep a track of. Sharon Scheib does a good job of keeping our spreadsheet of all of the platforms that we use, how much they cost, and all sorts of other information that's related to them. So this is a sprinkling. When you get this slide deck, though, you can click right on here, and it'll take you to Boom Cards if you want to see for yourself what that is. So, yeah, you can check all of them out.
Didn't have this stuff when Dana and I went.
I'll say most of these things have a free trial. You can get your own free trial.
You could try it, yeah. So Kim, if I may.
You do a lot of presentations, you would like Pear Deck.
Yeah.
I couldn't have survived last year
Yeah.
when I had to actually teach a class because we were remote. I couldn't have survived without Pear
Oh, I
Deck.
have to check that out.
So if I may, I have that spreadsheet up, and just so for your knowledge, there's 146 items on that spreadsheet.
Wow.
And there's others out there that we're finding about all the time, but we've been consolidating, bringing them together, checking privacy policies and the rules for student, protection, all those kind of things. But it's the first time we've had this all gathered, and you can really realize there's 146 really serious tools that are software driven that the curriculum that the teachers are using.
And Kim, how many out of that 146, like percentage-wise, how many of those platforms can be used at the high school level?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, and you look at everything on here, every one of these, Seesaw is too young. Boom Cards is probably too young, but any of the other ones could be. We don't have, and that's a really good question. When we did the math review last year and we said, what kind of platform would be helpful for you at the high school to do practice math? They said none, because it's either Algebra 1 or Geometry. So it's very different, but we do have things associated with the textbook. So we have Carnegie Learning with CPM. We have Mathia, which is available. So we do have some digital content pieces. We study Island at the high school for ELA. So there are some other pieces that are used at that secondary level. Because it gets so specialized, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Well, and my personal focus is on the high school,
Yeah.
having lived there my whole career, and that's where my concern is. And I want to make sure our teachers are getting those resources that they need to make their classrooms more dynamic,
Yeah.
more interactive, instead of standing up there and lecturing all day long.
So TLS, the company that's doing professional development for us, 4 or 5 at the middle school and at the high school. There's a cohort of 14 teachers right now at the high school going through TLS. Next year, we hope to get the rest of the core area teachers trained. That's our goal. They use these tech tools to teach the teachers. So they use Pear Deck. They use things like Padlet. They use Nearpod when they can. So they're showing them how to do the right instructional practice through several of the technology tools. That's basically where they got their start. As schools went one-to-one, and teachers were saying, I don't have any idea what to do with this and kids in the classroom. Sounds strange post-COVID, but pre-COVID, it was a very difficult challenge, and so that's where they got their start. So everything that TLS does integrates technology and shows the teachers how to use that with kids.
Well, the kids are always ahead of us.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And using it the wrong way. A lot of time, not necessarily using it educationally.
Yeah.
So Kim,
Yeah.
Peg, to answer your question the best that I can, I have a filter on that, and I know some of these are different items, but roughly 36 items pop out of the 146 that are used in some way on a regular basis in high school. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah, I always worry about the high school.
Some of those are things like Skyward Student that you expect, but there's Smart Futures, Soundtrap, SpeechWire, Storyboard, there's a lot of things in that space, so it's pretty significant.
And Sarah just mentioned Gizmos. Gizmos is an exceptionally interactive science lab platform.
Yes,
that
that's
Krista
one.
Paul at the high school was like, can we get this? And so she and I wrote the grant, and we got the grant last year. We paid for some of it this year. We got PP&L to offset some cost. But the science teachers love that. They do that all the time. When they can do a real lab, they do a real lab. When something like Gizmos would be more appropriate, they use that middle school and high school.
Great.
So,
Okay, so we brought this up last time, so I just was sharing that as an informational item. All of these things that we're doing in curriculum and technology together to help our teachers move forward. The other thing that I have on here is upcoming professional development. This is tomorrow. K-3 teachers will be in their buildings with their principal and leadership team, continuing to look at the goals that we set on January 28th. 4-5 will be getting a TLS workshop. And then again, we have choice options for teachers in grades 6 through 12. Some will be doing TLS, some will be with Sarah and I doing curriculum review. QPR, which is suicide CPR, it's a certificated program. That's an option for 2 hours. There's also, if you just really wanted, a refresher on suicide, you could do that as well. I'm sorry. We're replaying the LGBTQ training that was 2 hours long for those who wanted to watch that tomorrow. And then we have access services coming in. They're doing QPR, they're also doing managing secondary trauma and executing boundaries to protect compassionate support delivery. Those are really about teachers coping with all the things that are going on and learning how to do life and teach.
I wonder if we get slammed with emails because you're repeating that LGBT.
I probably will. Get slammed with emails.
Yeah.
Hey, babe.
Well, is this?
Or Andrea will. Andrea gets them before I do usually.
How many people participated in it back in November?
I can tell you.
Do you remember?
Right.
Just a rough estimate, like did we have a lot of?
Yeah, I mean, there were at least 35, and then I think this time I have about the same number. I can get you the exact number.
Oh, I don't need the exact.
I mean, the
I'll
teachers
get-
I
I'll get
spoke
it.
to said they're desperate for it.
Yes.
They need that.
That's why
Yeah.
I was curious. So you had 35 and you have about
I'll
the same,
check.
somewhere around
Yeah,
that. Well,
yeah.
please, you do not have to find
No, I
the
will.
exact
It's not hard to
number.
find. It's
But you have
easy to
about the
find.
same course that are interested to hear it this time. And then will we offer it 1/3 last time?
We
or-
talked about that. We'd like to offer it again in March. I just want to make sure that our teachers haven't run out of choices, because they would have had to choose in November and they would have this choice. And
Gotcha.
so if they've seen them all, I don't want to repeat it again. Some of our teachers who are in TLS haven't had a chance to have any of these because TLS comes every month, or every time we have PD. So we'll be looking at that. The plan was to offer it again, and I hope that we can offer all of these again or something very similar.
I wish we could do a training with the board. Probably never gonna happen, but gosh. Andrea, I don't know if you can answer this question, and if you can't, or not allowed to, then don't. How many transgender students do we have identified in the district?
Oh, specific numbers?
Oh,
So
that's-
I mean, 24, but we also have families who are registering their children as non-binary. Those are, I mean, that's how they want to be
Yeah.
registered. So, and you know, that's not transgender, that's non-binary, and then we work with the families to talk
Sure.
about,
Yeah.
you know, what kind of supports or
Yeah.
expectations they have in that registration process. And we're seeing that as early as kindergarten registration.
Oh, no kidding. Wow,
So,
wow. Holy cow.
I do think, Peg, you guys had access to the video. If you wanted to see it, I know it's not maybe the training that you're looking for, but it was so informative.
Yeah, I need to look at it, and
Yeah.
I just haven't had a chance to. Yeah.
I'm not sure it's still available. I think it was only available until the end of January.
But we can let, if there are people that wanted to see it but didn't have time to yet, we can provide access again. We just have to be really careful because of the copyright.
Yeah, I would be curious,
But
just
I'm sure he could open it up for a week
Yeah.
again if there was
I
people
need
who
to-
wanted to see it.
if I get a chance, if you can, I'd like to look at it, because I think it would be helpful, just educational wise, and, you know, I teach a course that has a transgender student athlete component in it, so I'm always looking for knowledge from that area.
There's a lot of knowledge in there. There was
Yeah.
a lot of understanding of terms. And that's what our teacher said, I just need to understand what these words mean and what
Yeah.
these students are feeling so that I can come alongside them and offer support.
Yeah,
Or
we,
not.
back in 2016, when I was still at State College, we brought in Karen O'Connell or Karen Connell from Central Dauphin School District, who's actually transgender, and she just did an unbelievable presentation on the whole thing. It's amazing.
We got really positive feedback from our
Yeah.
teachers. And again, it's choice.
Mhm.
Teachers are choosing to learn about that.
Right.
They have several choices that day. So we just wanted to give you that as an FYI. And then, Emily, the last time we were together, you asked if we could give you some input on what happened on January 28th. So, as you know, I'm sorry if that made you dizzy. We're good now. I'm right where I need to be. And there are a lot of slides here. Sarah's going to walk you through most of them, but just by way of introduction, you know Dr. Farina had done a ton of work with MTSS, so we're continuing that work, and it's really taking hold. The things that teachers are now understanding about, oh, okay, I can, this is my role, I have to help every student in my classroom, and now I feel better equipped to do so. Teachers are never like, I don't want to do that. Sometimes they're fearful because they don't know how. And so through professional development and the structures that we've put into place with data protocols this year, and I think having administrators partner with the building has really made a big difference in the ability of teams to feel comfortable and function and get to the heart of what we need to do. So we always call this MTSS Supporting All Students. Every building went through data analysis, and we're going to show you some of that data just to show you some of the growth, and then we'll walk through kind of the process. So this is always our learning model. We always start with this, and we say this is why we're doing what we're doing. And if you were to picture an upside down umbrella under that circle, that's MTSS. We don't want to lose any kids. So if anybody's dropping out, if anybody's not getting what they need, we catch them through the MTSS process. So we work towards strong curriculum, assessment to see what students know, appropriate instruction, and management in the classroom, which includes a safe, inclusive environment all throughout the school and the school community. We always circle this with the UPSD community because we have such an invested one in students. So this is how we support all students. We also have a flow chart. This is our MTSS flow chart. It's overwhelming when you start to look at it with the boxes and the words. But it talks about, here's where we want 80% of our students functioning at the core. We would like 100% of our students there, but generally in any given environment, it's about 80. And then we have to figure out, okay, what's up with that other 5 to 15%? What's up with that other 20%? Do they need additional support? Likely, and that's our tier 2 supports. And then tier 3, that 1 to 5% of students who we know are going to continue to struggle, and how can we get them that help? So this is a culmination of Dr. Farina's work, really before we got here, reintroducing it this current school year and putting some notes on the side to try to help with that. So I really feel as though, and I think that Sarah and Dr. Farina would agree, that the MTSS structure has really been effective this year, and Carol too has been really involved in that. And so that's where we start our learning all the time. When we work with K-3, really even K-5, we talk about reading and how kids learn to read. And it really is a case where we see all students get what they need, but they don't all get the same thing. And that's when we know we're really functioning at a point where we've looked, we've examined the root cause, and we're applying what's needed for individual students. Gets a little bit hairier, 6 through 12, because you don't have kind of the foundational, here's how I learned to read skills. It's more difficult to pinpoint. But our earliest learners, really up through 5th or 6th grade, we can do some great diagnostic testing.
What did you tell me about reading apprenticeship, or are we engaged in that, or?
The day you brought it up with me, I had it out on my table there. So we're not using reading apprenticeship right now. And actually, it's become synonymous with the universal design for learning. It's a great structure, and I think we can introduce it. TLS is doing a lot of strategies that are similar, but I don't think we can ignore the great science and the great research that supports reading apprenticeship and just the almost common sense strategies that come out of that.
Changed my life.
Helping students. Me too, as a teacher, definitely me too.
And are you familiar with the American Reading Company? Are they still around?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
they drop off presents all the time.
Yeah, we use them at Susquehanna Township, and all the administrators had to be involved in that too. And I had so much fun with that.
Yeah.
Going to classrooms and reading with the kids and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely is. You could do that anytime. Teachers would take you anytime to read.
Oh,
Kids, I would totally love it.
But this was at the high school too.
Oh, that's cool.
And Susquehanna Township is a very diverse school district,
Yeah.
so it was pretty interesting.
Good, so again, you'll get these slides when we're done tonight. There's another definition of MTSS. I did want to point out that if you look at a true MTSS model, there are really 7 aspects of it, and these are all of those 7. And, we've kind of circled areas where we've spent our focus so far this year. You can't focus on all 7 at one time. But you will see that parent and family engagement is big. And as we start to feel very comfortable moving forward with our processes and procedures, we can work on that engagement with families, because that's critical. It's critically important. Okay, so Sarah put together all of the slides that were either used on the 28th or that we've had subsequent access to. So it'll be a quick look at the data from mid-year for all of our buildings. So I'll be Vanna White, you tell me when to.
So, you have to excuse me, I'm still nursing a cold, so my voice goes in and out. So we brought together the math and the ELA data for all buildings, K to 12. So the first data point we wanted to show you is our Dibbles assessment. And Dibbles is really an assessment of those basic reading skills that kids need to be able to be fluent readers. So if you look, excuse me, across the board, this is Hereford. When you take a look at our numbers, ideally we want our greens and our blues to grow. And so across the board, we're really seeing a major increase in those green and blue numbers and a decrease in our reds, which is the movement that we wanted to see K to 3. So our teachers, they see all the green, they get very, very excited. And so that's a projection from the beginning to the middle of the year.
And this is the composite score. It's a combination with heavier weight to a couple of the factors that are important by grade level for students to master.
And so in October, we set building goals. And they were really focused on those basic skills that we knew that our kids needed, and that they were coming in lagging specifically as a result of the mixed up year we had last year, but also, to really target in that root cause that Kim was talking about. So Hereford adopted a goal for nonsense word fluency. And really what that is that's a student's ability to decode a word. So they are able to decode and pick out specific sounds to make a new word. So they're given a word like TIG. And so the child needs to be able to say TIG, and that's a full word. And then they apply that to actual words. So we're not teaching to the test to be able to read TIG. What we're teaching them is the ability to sound out that word and to decode the word. So this was our beginning of the year goal at Hereford. Those are our numbers. And as you can see, our teachers really targeted that specific skill. We saw improvements across all categories. We're very excited about that. And that was Hereford as a whole.
If we're going too fast, just raise a hand and we'll slow
Yep.
down.
This is again another look from the beginning to the middle of the year, just at Hereford of that Dibbles composite score, all of those key subtests that are most important when looking at a child's ability to read and have those reading acquisition skills. So again, we're seeing a decrease in the red and the yellow, which is what we like, and an increase in that blue and that green. So that's Hereford as a whole. This is our F&P scores. F&P looks at specific reading behaviors of a student. It also targets whether or not they're reading on grade level. So you can see in the beginning of the year, we were 50-50. At Hereford, 50% of our kids were on grade level, first through third, 50% were not. At the middle of the year, 61% of our first through third graders are now reading on grade level, 39 are still working towards that goal. We were really impressed with that number.
Can I ask, in a normal, pre-COVID,
Yeah.
was that,
It wasn't 50-50.
no?
It was higher. It was better than
It was better.
50-50.
Yeah.
So to see that kind of an improvement, and that's the other thing you'll see with a lot of these numbers is where our kids came in with that fractured education.
Yeah.
And the teachers, I think, were a little overwhelmed with that data in the fall. It was
I
like,
bet.
Where do we even start? And so that's a great question. I can go back and find the numbers for you, Emily, but
No,
yeah.
that was the answer I was looking for.
But
Thank you.
Tim, we haven't been doing a lot of data stuff, right?
No, we actually have been. We actually have been.
Not recently. I'm talking
Oh.
about in the past.
I think
Since I-
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of data work, starting in
15.
when did I start assistant
Okay.
super, 15,
Yeah.
16?
That's your fault.
Oh, I did bring the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think the difference is too, like even though there's been a lot of work, we're wanting to be much more communicative about it, and not it's not hidden work. This is what we do every day, and we're really proud to see what has happened. And the teachers were, I think, really excited.
Yeah, the teachers really took ownership of this data. They were so excited, and our reading specialists shared that they were waiting at the doors for their results so they could see how their kids
Yeah, I
performed.
think it's so
So that
neat.
ownership of data,
Yeah.
really shows the investment in the kids and what they're doing.
Even in the conversation, Sarah and I
Yeah.
walked around on the 28th and we were just beaming because they were having those in-depth conversations about exactly what I tried and why it didn't work and what
That's
these kids
awesome.
might need. It was fun to be there that day.
So this is our MAP assessment, and MAP is our benchmark. We take it 3 times a year, and it produces a RIT score. And essentially, the RIT score shows the teacher what the student's ready to learn in their grade level standards. So you can see the year-over-year comparison. This is Hereford. We take it in 1st and 2nd grade, and you'll see 3rd grade next. The light purple is last school year. Now, I know you see that looks higher. There was a lot of kids. We took these tests at home last year for beginning and middle of year. So, Mom, come out maybe number 6, Not that happened, but we can't be sure that it didn't. So what we do see is, though we see a decline from where we were in the light purple, both grade levels are going up. Now, these scores do not traditionally increase by large amounts. So, 154 to 166, 12 points, that's a great gain that we like to see. So it's showing that progress fall to winter. And then you'll see 3rd grade on the next screen.
And what MAP gives us also is a projection for those
Yes.
students who will take the PSSA, whether or not they're projected to be proficient. So that's another data point that they were looking at. And it's based on the RIT score. These are scores that MAP comes to because they can do a national average of all of the scores that are happening. They even have international students in their database. And so we've been using this, gosh, Andrea, when did you guys start that?
That, 15, 16?
Yeah. Okay, that's our for data. And then here it is for math. So again, you're seeing again that same positive growth for both 1st and 2nd grade. And then we see it again for 3rd grade as well.
It'll be interesting to look next year too.
Yes.
At that 3-year comparison.
When we see that 3-year comparison, we're hoping for even better numbers. So again, the 3rd grade momentum was excellent as well.
You almost have to have a COVID footnote.
Yeah.
Well, and we've said that. In fact, that's what the PSSA results, the letters just went home with the COVID.
With the COVID, yeah, you have to. So this is Marlboro, again, that Dibbles data, K through 3, from the beginning to the middle of the year. You're seeing a very similar trend. Look at that decrease in red. We were so excited to see that across the board. Increase in greens and blues. Very proud of that data. Same thing, Marlboro's building goal was very similar to Hereford's, that nonsense word, looking at that specific skill as a means to decode. So they flipped their chart, Marlboro did, which was really exciting to see. Now, I know those numbers are small, but they went from 53% intensive, which is that lowest score, to 33% intensive, 49% core. So they flipped their graph. Same thing with their F&P scores, they flipped their graph. So that's reading comprehension, the ability to read on grade level. They started the year 57 not on grade level. They're now at 61 on grade level, so they flipped their chart.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy? We're really excited.
What we said is that kids are responding to instruction.
That's what we're seeing.
Face-to-face
Yeah.
instruction, kids are responding to instruction. Also, we've brought in specific programs to work on phonics and phonemic awareness. So with that fidelity to the Haggerty program and the Foundations program, they will make gains. It's research-based.
Face-to-face instruction works.
It does, I know,
There
it's
it
a
is.
novel concept.
There's our MAP scores in Marlboro. Again, you're seeing that positive trend for 1 and 2. And then again, for 3rd grade, you'll see that same positive trend. Really exciting to see.
And you'll get these slides.
Yes, you'll get these slides as well. There's math. Big jumps in math as well, 1 and 2. Same thing in grade 3. So very, very positive growth at that lower elementary level. When we move into 4 or 5, I know Carol only have a few minutes, but when we move into the 4th and 5th grade center, their building goal was based on F&P. So again, the ability, the child's reading ability, looking at that on grade level. So in the beginning of the year on the left, 52% of the 4-5 center did not meet grade level expectations. In the winter, it's up to 26% did not meet. They went from 48% meeting again to 74.
That's huge.
Huge growth.
And just so you see, they're looking at it, is it due to accuracy or comprehension? Like, there's even deeper dives we do with this data to try to figure out, okay, so now where do we target these students? And 4-5, they implemented a program. They knew what some of the weaknesses were over the past few years, and so they implemented multi-syllabic routine cards in the first half of the year, and I forget what they're doing in the second half, but we really feel like that intense instruction for all kids helped to move that forward.
Here's their MAP scores, again, fall to winter. We are seeing some really excellent growth there as well. That's ELA. And then the next one will be their math scores. Again, that positive trajectory. Very exciting to see over at 4-5. I'm sorry, it says Marlboro, but that was 4-5. Then we move on to middle school. Middle school also takes the MAP assessment, so we're looking at that measure in both math and ELA. Again, same thing, that positive growth upwards. Middle school actually as a whole did very comparable in the fall as they did in the winter, so that was exciting to see. But yeah, again, those positive movements are really fantastic. Same thing in math. We're seeing a lot of growth in the kids, ELA.
And are these scores, similar to the other question, are the scores that we're seeing now reflective of a pre-COVID type score?
These are probably a little bit more reflective.
I think
Middle
they are.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
And whereas the elementary school is, I guess what I'm getting at, have the students gotten back to pre-COVID sort of levels of?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And we honestly won't know until
We
probably we wrap up
Yeah.
with
And
our
it's-
March and April
Okay.
scores and then the end of the
Okay.
year.
Their last year's scores are a little bit closer to what this year's scores were, so they might be a little bit more reflective.
Okay.
It'll be good, nice to look at the 3-year trend and just see how that kind of all shakes out.
Yeah, like I almost would say that 2021, ball it up and throw it out.
That's why we
I don't
focus on
know.
those darker
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah.
because we still see that positive trajectory in this year as
Good.
well, really showing that what we're doing instructionally in the classroom is having a positive impact. So at the high school, we utilize Lincoln benchmarks. And Lincoln is our test keeping and data warehouse platform. So they have a benchmark, we take it 3 times a year, and it mirrors what the students see on the Keystone exam. They have a very high correlation to student performance on this exam as they do to the Keystone exam. So this is literature. I do apologize, it's truncated underneath. Now this is not year over year, this is just fall to winter of this academic school year. So when you look at kids in the bubble, that's the question I always get, who are those bubble kids? Those are the kids that are close either way. So close to that basic, or closer to that proficient. And so when you look at they have the tendency to sway a little bit. Not quite secure enough to be proficient, but can be pushed and moved up to that level. So that's what we see in the literature.
Is the advanced they're saying though that though they were advanced coming in the fall, more people caught up to them in the winter, right? Like,
Well,
it's not like they're losing.
yeah, I look at this and I
proficiency.
kind of go, I want to know who all those kids are. I
Yeah.
want to know, because these percentages didn't move in the direction necessarily that we wanted them to.
Right.
I will say the students who take, are you sure that's not Algebra? No, that's English.
That's
Okay.
English.
Yeah, the benchmark Form B is a little bit harder, obviously, because it's mid-year, so you have to factor that in as well. But we really do want to kind of to dive in there and say what happened, like why are we seeing maybe some movement, or some kids who were supposed to be advanced now aren't supposed to be advanced.
Yeah.
And so we do want to take a closer look at that, no doubt.
So next one is algebra. This is given in our Algebra 1 classes again, fall to winter. So we did see some positive growth. It looks like the green number wasn't there, it was a little too small of a space, but our blues went up. We do see a decrease in the yellow section, that basic section. So again, to Kim's point, we want to know who that 5% is that joined our below basic crew. We really want to know and be able to identify the students in those categories so we can meet them where they are with the right level of activity to help kind of fill in those gaps that they might still have. That's Algebra 1 and then Bio. Again, Form A to B. Bio really blew it out of the water. They did a very nice job on this assessment. We were excited to see these results as well. So we'll take this a third time. We will have the data in time for the Keystone assessment. And our teachers will, again, kind of look at that 3 assessment trajectory to really target what the students need to help prepare them for the end of course expectations.
So certainly what you saw there was the idea that there's much more data K-5, much more data K-5. Benchmarks and things become a little bit more sporadic. I put a couple other slides in here. We're going to stop because it's 7 and I don't want to go over.
Oh, sorry.
But I wanted you to see exactly what the data process is. What do we notice in the data? What are our conclusions? And then therefore, what should we do? What's our goal and what are the action steps? We encourage the teachers to think about shifts in practice. What can they do? So rather than thinking about what about the student is causing this discrepancy, what could I do differently in terms of curriculum instruction and learning environment assessment, things like that. So that's all this. You'll get the full slide deck, but we do so much work with data. We wanted to show you a little bit of that at mid-year. The depth of the analysis that the teachers and the administrative team are doing is really excellent.
I
Anything that
appreciate
you
that.
would add, Carolyn, Andrew, because you've been involved in that the whole time, with all of it.
I would just say at the high school, because that's how we're sort of all divided between the buildings. I'm with the high school and the MTSS piece. It is a learning process there because, as one can imagine, it's very new at that level. But if I look at September and I look at now, it's definitely, we're seeing growth. We're seeing, what that looks like and what teachers are doing to do some of the basic reteaching of skills in Algebra 1 and when is that occurring and how is it occurring and are they taking some data on that and seeing some progress. So there's growth there, but again, it's very new, I think, at that level. And it's a different type of ballgame up there, just earning credits and looking at that whole piece. But it's moving forward.
And I would just say, inherently, some of the recommendations we've made administratively have obviously been tailored to the elementary school. It is very hard to fill, instructional academic gaps, even as late as 6th grade. We really have to put our reinforcements and our supports instructionally. I hear you because having been a high school teacher and administrator myself, but fundamentally, if we can make sure kids don't have gaps leaving elementary school, then they are on solid ground moving into middle and high school. And then we should be in a place where we can service our secondary students who are still struggling at greater depth with the resources we have. I think there's no question, I still have concerns instructionally, elementary school, that there are enough support mechanisms there in order to make sure kids, even more so now after COVID, but strategically, reading specialists, Even student assistance counselors, believe it or not, social and emotional health is a factor to academic performance. The K coach position, those were not happenstance. You know, we have all of the resources and materials. We spent 5 years. I've come here for 5 years recommending those. Now we just need to make sure we're supporting the teachers in the classrooms with the instructions directly to the kids. Because that, you know, that's where the rubber meets the road. And I think we all, you know, having gone to school, know that that's where it is. And so, you know, I think our focus is making sure we have readers and consumers of math, you know, as early as first, second, third grade, not leaving our K-3 buildings non-readers. I mean, I can't express to you how important that is to us. They have to be able to read. No child should leave there without being able to read. And so, you know, that's why we are passionate about this process, because we have to be. It will make every other grade and the data you see 6 through 12 look so much better when we shore that up and give them the support and instruction they need.
That's one thing I got from a reading apprenticeship is, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to be blunt. If you can't read, you're screwed. You know, it's so critical. But to the high school, my concern at the high school, and you said it, is the instructional piece and making sure that our teachers are not afraid to fail in the classroom, to try new things, to engage with the students and just not lecture. You know, not that that's going on, but just making sure there's instructional support for those teachers to really drive it and encourage rigor and all of that stuff.
And I think all of that, this whole year with the professional development and the DI, differentiated instruction, as well as moving forward at that level with the MTSS, and those, you know, once every 6 days, those meetings with like the core team, we would call it the child study team, looking at and delving into every teacher now from our January training. Every teacher is expected to, where's that small group of students? Is it 1 student? Is it 5 students? Is it 6? And now taking the data and during their IE period at the high school, like really looking at that and getting into it and looking for improvements.
Perfect.
And instructional coaches will continue to make a difference as we look at that in our long trajectory of budget. Just making a plug, you know, while we were on topic.
All right, well, I'm sorry that we went 5 minutes over. I will entertain a motion to adjourn
I'll make
the
that motion.
break. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Meeting, all in favor?
I'll go
Aye.
after.
All opposed?
Okay.
Are you crazy?
Okay. All right, guys, thank you very much.